Welcome, everyone. I'm Kimberly Boschman, and this is the Intentionally Intuitive Podcast. In this episode, I wanted to take some time to briefly break down the numerology for the Venus retrograde that we're stepping into as of July 22nd, 2023. This retrograde will go until September 3rd, 2023, so it is happening for 40 days and 40 nights. It is happening in astrology in the sign of Leo, and this is significant. And so I want to kind of just look at a few different things to kind of give you a general idea of what we can expect on sort of a collective level. We will all sort of feel this to some degree, and we will get a taste of it. Of course, how it affects us personally will depend on our own circumstances, our own numerology, and our own experiences, of course, and our own decisions of what we choose to do with this energy. But I am kind of fascinated by what we have at play here. So I wanted to get an episode out just to share this for anyone who's interested. Okay, so this Venus retrograde is highlighting the energy of the 36-9. So predominantly the energy of the 9. This is very significant. And I'm going to go into why in just a moment, and also the energy of the 36, which I'll talk about in just a moment. I'm also going to take a quick look at the energy of the 40, so 44, 404, because that's also significant and ties into sort of what we could be looking at. So first, let's start with the energy of the lion. And so the reason why I want to take a look at this is because, again, in astrology, this is happening in the sign of Leo. So that stood out to me. And it's interesting because the lion signifies in tarot the strength card, right? So we have this energy of mind over matter, right? Love wins. When we think about a lion's pride, right? Lions are very protective of their pride. They are, if we think about it metaphorically, it's a very heart-led energy. It's a very courageous energy. It's also strength expressed in kindness when we think about the strength card in tarot, okay? If you think about the strength card in tarot, how it's traditionally depicted, there is a woman who has sort of tamed the lion. And so again, it's this strength, the strength of the lion, expressed in kindness. So strength expressed in kindness, which is incredibly beautiful if you think about it, because when we think about Venus, Venus signifies love, beauty, can signify, finances, harmony in love, beauty, finances. So when Venus goes retrograde, this is a time for reflection, for a sort of reevaluation of those sort of themes. So when we bring the lion energy into this, there's courage behind whatever it is that we're meant to sort of take a deeper look at, what we're supposed to dig a little bit deeper into, because sometimes, especially when it comes to those themes, love, finances, the Venusian themes, sometimes we want to avoid those. We don't want to, especially if it has to do with past relationships, right? And that's definitely something that could sort of crop up around this time. And so a lot of times people don't want to deal with that. They want to sort of either suppress it or avoid it or just move on. And so with the lion energy coming through, there's definitely this sort of strength expressed in kindness, but also this courageousness. So there's definitely something here where we are being asked to invoke our courage and our kindness through that courage, as well as sort of standing face to face with whatever it is that we have fear around when it comes to those Venusian themes, okay? But what I love about this is with the lion energy is really that strength expressed in kindness. So again, if we go back to the tarot card, with the lion and the woman who's tamed the lion. So there's definitely strength in connectivity, as opposed to the weakness of separation, right? It's easy to have strength when it's brute force, right? Or that's what we think sometimes when we think of strength, is that physical strength. But when we really take a closer look at it, mind over matter is so much more powerful. So our intention, our will, that strength through kindness. So the lion, I think, is just so significant from that aspect. This is not about force. This is not about power over somebody. This is our own, finding our own courage and not being afraid to use our voice to speak up for what it is that we feel that we need or how we need to express ourselves. And being very, very honest within that expression, right? When we think about lion energy, this is bold energy. This is not meek and mild. So that doesn't mean aggressive. That simply means strength in honesty. So again, being very honest in our expression of not only what we need, but how we feel, our experience, our perspective, whatever the case may be, while also honoring the honesty in others. Okay. So incredibly beautiful with lion energy coming through. Especially with that courage, because sometimes though we say we want honesty, we want truth, sometimes not only is it hard to speak in an honest fashion, but sometimes it's hard to receive that honesty. And you can see it in society. We've sort of moved away from that. And that has created sort of the situation that we're in, right? Where it's quicker and easier to move towards separation, move towards isolation, as opposed to simply being honest with ourselves and with others. And I think that this Venus retrograde is really going to ask us to take a closer look at that. And the reason why I say that is because this energy is highlighting the vibration of the 9. And so I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. Now, what I found ironic about sort of the core energy that's being focused on here, highlighted, is 36-9. When we take a look at the 36 energy, it's very similar to that of the lion energy. So it's very much about strength being expressed in kindness and efforts being made towards inspiring others. So having the courage to do what inspires us. And through that act of our own inspiration, we will, by default, inspire others to do the same, right? It's not very inspiring when we just go with sort of the flock, right? Like we're just basically doing what everybody else is doing so that we can fit in. There's not a whole lot of inspiration in that because, again, that's sort of the path of least resistance. Now, if somebody is sort of going against the grain and they're following their heart, they are heart-led, they're doing what inspires them, and they are just lit up by that process, they are in spirit, right? Inspired. That has the power to, just through the frequency of that and the vibration, lift the vibration of others and inspire others. So with the 36 energy, there is absolutely sort of an undercurrent here about following your heart, doing what inspires you, and stepping into spirit through that inspirational process. And by default, just by, again, following your own inspirations, being an inspiration to others, not with the intention to influence, but with the intention and the will of following your own inspirations and doing what inspires you, saying yes to what inspires you, saying no to what does not inspire you. Because remember, Venus is, again, about beauty, about love, about finances, about inspiration, about all things sort of that bring this sense of a higher vibration of beauty and love to a situation. And so in order for us to sort of be in that vibration, we have to be doing what inspires us from our heart center, from that fourth chakra, right? Which is very much the lion energy giving us the courage to do that, giving us that sort of strength to go against the grain, even if nobody else understands it, and do what our heart really, really is asking us to do, to really follow our heart and be heart-led. So that is like the 36 energy, that putting the effort towards inspiring others simply by doing what inspires you. So beautiful, beautiful there. And again, it's very similar to that of the lion energy, which I just spoke about. Now, if we break it down a little bit further and we look at the energy of the 9, and this is what I found to be really fascinating about this Venus retrograde. Because a lot of times when we talk about Venus and Venus retrograde, especially in astrology, depending on where it falls on the chart, but we're looking at, our relationships with our close, like romantic partners or friends or family. But it's interesting because the energy of the 9 changes the dynamic. And so for the next 40 days and 40 nights, we're going to have an emphasis, a strong focal point being placed on the vibration of the 9. So the 9 is all about something bigger than self. It's about the collective. It's about all. It's about connectivity, sort of the universal circle, right? It's bigger than self. It's bigger than I. And so we're being asked to sort of reevaluate our efforts, our contributions or actions towards the greater collective when it comes to love, when it comes to the higher vibration of love, that higher octave, when it comes to how we show up to connections, when we're looking at connectivity over separation, right? So again, separation, isolation, the individual I overall is often, again, the path of least resistance because it doesn't take as much effort to move towards separation. Moving towards connectivity, moving towards sort of a more selfless mindset or intention can sometimes be a little bit more challenging because, again, it forces us to be very honest with ourselves and very honest in our expression with others, how we feel, what we need, our perspective and experience, as well as being very open to that same honesty coming from others. So it sort of opens the playing field, which can mean that we need to be vulnerable. And that we have to be we have to honor other people's vulnerability, which again, in today's day and time, it's a little bit, we're sort of moving away from that. And you can sort of see that on a grander scale. So this Venus retrograde is saying, we need to pause and we need to reevaluate not only our place within the world, but our contribution, right? And our effort towards those things that are very Venusian. So again, how we view finances, how we share that wealth, how we circulate it, how we're gaining it, how we're putting it back out into the world. Same thing with love. How are we truly expressing that to others? Is it really driven by, more selfishness? What can I get out of this connection? What can this connection do for me? Or is it more selfless? What can how can I give from a place of my deeper being? How can I give from a place of gratitude, not a place of burden or a place of obligation, but a place of gratitude and graciousness to serve sort of something bigger than self. Now, when we're looking at the energy of the 9, we are being asked, and again, with this retrograde, we're being asked to reevaluate or evaluate if we haven't already done so. Again, our effort. So we don't have control necessarily, or we don't always have control over the results, right? Like what that looks like. But we absolutely have control over our efforts and how much effort we put in to connectivity as opposed to separation, towards a higher vibration of love, towards connecting with or contributing towards the greater good in a very honest way. So I think we're going to see, especially on a grander scale, where there have been tensions or very strong boundaries put in place that are not healthy, or where there's been breakdowns in communication, or where there's been just the opposite of love, right? Where we're showing up in a lower vibration of shame, guilt, anger, burden, resentment. I think we're going to feel a lot of pressure put on those areas to be healed, to be taken a closer look at, and to build something better. So this 9 energy is absolutely about connectivity over separation and about something bigger than self, because 9 energy is that of the humanitarian. So this energy is going to say, how can we build those bridges that have been burned down? How can we heal whatever it is that needs healing? Now, that doesn't mean that you're meant to go back to an abusive relationship, or you're meant to bring people back into your life who are not healthy for you or the other person. But there's an energy to it, right? So if we are moving towards separation, where we're quick to blame or judge or hold anger and resentment, that vibration is not in alignment with Venus or this 9 energy. And so what we're being asked to do is to find a healthy way to heal that energy, to heal that experience, so that we, again, are building some kind of a bridge. Because connectivity doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have these very close relationships with everyone. It just means that you're removing the toxicity or the negativity from those connections, right? Or the resentment, the blame, the judgment, the pointing the finger, the unnecessary boundaries are being sort of taken down and bridges being built. So for the next 40 days and 40 nights, we're going to feel that pressure put on those places where we need to put some extra TLC. And sometimes we're not able to do that in the physical, right? And so it has to be done energetically. And so again, this is a great opportunity to take a closer look at where it is that not only within your personal relationships, there may be some healing that needs to take place, forgiveness, building those bridges, moving from blame, resentment, anger, to a higher vibration of that forgiveness, of compassion, empathy, honesty, understanding, so that you and that other person can at least move forward energetically. Because again, the 9 is going to say, if we keep people sort of stuck and we keep ourselves stuck in past actions, we're saying that that person can never change and that we can never change. And so we stay in that moment of time, forever reliving it or forever dredging it back up and moving through it, right? But not moving beyond it. And so this Venus retrograde, this 9 energy, is saying, let's just really pause and take a close look at this and see, where is it that there's something that we're keeping ourselves and another or others stuck in a past energy that we need to move beyond. We need to find a healthy way to move beyond that. And I'm saying our personal relationships, but this is also on a grander scale that we can see this play out, because this is for the collective. Will it happen overnight? Of course not. But I think that this retrograde, with all these forces coming together, are really going to be putting the pressure on it to bring it to our awareness. And once it's in our awareness, it's really hard for it to leave that awareness, right? Because once you see it, you can't unsee it, type thing. So again, what can we do? This is going to ask us to be very mindful about the effort that we are putting forth. when it comes to moving towards connection or moving towards separation. And it's not that we're going to keep beating ourselves up for past actions, but it is going to say, let's pause, let's take a look at our behaviors up to this point. What needs to be adjusted? What needs to be shifted so that our effort put forth can get different results, right? Instead of burning every bridge, we're building bridges. Instead of placing blame and putting forth anger or taking on burdens, we are being very honest in our communication. We're being very open to the honesty of others. We are learning to work together as opposed to against each other. So remember, strength is expressed in kindness with these energies. We need to be mindful that we don't have control over another person or their actions, right? But we absolutely have control over our intention, over our will, over our actions, and our effort. And so what kind of effort do we want to make? What kind of effort can we as an individual make, knowing that that effort is going to have a greater impact, at least energetically, on the greater good? And so I really see this retrograde coming at the perfect time, but really highlighting the need to move towards working together as opposed to working against each other, moving towards connectivity over separation. And so how do we do that as an individual? Well, when we're making decisions about our close connections or about, people that we meet, or our contribution to society, we need to be very mindful about how we choose or what kind of energy we choose to put into that sort of bigger bank, right? Are we choosing to invest in anger, resentment, frustration, blame, name calling, building unnecessary boundaries? Or are we going to put our energy and efforts towards healthy communication, connectivity, being very honest, again, with ourselves, with others in our communication, as well as, again, being very open to others being very honest with us in what they need, in their experience, in how they're feeling, and being open to other people's perspectives. I think this is going to be a really big theme, and we can say, well, this is so much bigger than me, so my efforts really don't make a difference. And, just to sort of sound, just to be cliche for a moment, it's like, the ripple in the water, right? The drop in the ocean is still the ocean, and a ripple can become a tidal wave. And so if everybody thinks my efforts don't matter and they just want to be aggressive or angry or frustrated or stuck in a moment from the past, that fuels that fire of negativity. But if we can each be very mindful about our energetic output and how we show up to connections and how we work together, how we try to work together, that can make a difference, right? If we can put our energy and our intent and our will behind what inspires us and lights us up and lifts our vibration, then by default, we're automatically a presence and help to lift the vibration of others. So your contribution does matter, is what I'm trying to say. And this Venus retrograde is going to ask all of us collectively to take a closer look and to reevaluate how we have been showing up, the effort that we have been putting forth, our, what have we been taking accountability and responsibility for? How honest have we been with ourselves and with others? All of these things could be coming up for evaluation at this time or reevaluation to be adjusted, modified, rectified if we choose to do it. So we could also see with this 9 energy, things coming to conclusion, right? So things closing out. So it may be that You're able to have a conversation with someone, heal that connection. But through healing that connection, that person falls away. And that's okay, right? If the energy between that connection is not negative, right? And again, you don't have control over the other person. You only have control over how you are showing up to it. But if you feel good about the energy that you're putting forth towards that connection, then you can check that box. Your job is done type thing. But you may see when you start to be very honest with yourself and others that there are people who are not ready for that honesty and they may fall away. And so you may see that happen at this time, but it's clearing the plate for the people who will be able to meet you at the vibration that you're at. So you may see that happen, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing something wrong. It's just asking you to check your vibration. So do you feel good about the way that things were left? Do you feel good about the connection? Do you feel good about your effort and your contribution, or sort of your vibration when you think about that connection, right? Because if you don't, then that's your work to do. And this retrograde, this 9 vibration can ask you, will put pressure on you to do that, right? But you may see things come to closure, but that closure can also be a healing point. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's also can be done with compassion, which the 9 is going to ask us to do. This is also an energy of the humanitarian, right? This is humanitarianism at its peak. And so with this with Venus going into retrograde, highlighting the energy of the 9, we will likely be asked, what are we doing in a selfless way? How are we contributing to the greater good? Or how are we paying it forward? How are we helping to uplift, empower, inspire others through our work, through our efforts? Because if we're leading a more selfish journey, then we're going to really feel the pressure during this retrograde, because there needs to be a balance there. We can also see a lot coming in with this 9 energy around romance and forgiveness. So this is kind of where it comes into those sort of more immediate connections. You may see people resurface at this time. You may see new people surface at this time. Because it's a retrograde, it will likely be something from the past resurfacing. But it's very possible, and this is where the 9 says, don't get too caught up in keeping people stuck in their past. So in other words, are you defining the person by the action, right? Because if you're defining, Bob from 6 years ago as this awful person who did these awful deeds, but Bob shows up at your doorstep, 6 years later, a totally changed human being, and you can't see the new Bob because you've defined Bob as the Bob from 6 years ago, you're going to miss out on potentially an opportunity to heal that connection, or to even move forward in a new way, because likely, chances are you are also a different person than you were 6 years ago. So don't be surprised if connections resurface at this time to either be healed, to be released in a healthy way, or if someone resurfaces where the timing was off previously, but the timing and the evolution of both people have now sort of met at a point where it could very much work. So again, this energy, especially with a 9, is saying, be open. Be open to what comes your way, and don't shoot it down because you're defining it by a past experience, whether it's with that person or with someone else. So just be very, very open. This can also bring in a ton of creativity. You may see that you pick up past projects from that you've put down before, right? That come back in with gusto during this time. And so I would say if that happens, run with it, go with it. Because this can be a great time to really get your mojo going when it comes to that creativity. Absolutely. Especially if it's a project that you've either previously started or you and have been working on. You could see like, the wind coming to your sails. Or if there's something that you were working on and you put down, you could pick it back up now. This is also a great time to be very innovative, right? Not necessarily starting something new, but getting new ideas around a current project, or again, something that you've put down previously that comes back in, raring to go. This energy, this 9, with this retrograde, is going to ask us to release, like reevaluate and release any bitterness, any living in the past, anywhere that we are isolating ourselves or where we are emotionally disconnected. This 9 energy is going to say, where can we connect as opposed to moving towards that separation or staying stuck in a vibe of separation. So anywhere where we have built up a lot of walls, we may see those crumble at this time. Anywhere that we have been over controlling, we could see pressure be put on that area at this time. And anywhere that where we have been, again, not honest with ourselves, that where we need help or support, this energy could say, you need to be very honest with yourself in where it is that you have limitations, and where is it that other people have strengths where you have those limitations, and how can you ask for that help? Where can you go to receive that support? And you may find that the challenge or the suffering becomes so great that you feel sort of forced to do that. And, that's good because you need that support and you need to ask for it and accept it when it comes in without feeling guilt or shame around that. And then, of course, giving and being compassionate and sort of, this is really an energy at its higher vibration of wisdom and integrity. So again, I would say if there's anywhere that we've been sort of moving at a pace of dishonesty, moving from a place of ignoring our intuition or our higher consciousness, this energy is going to say during this retrograde, come back to your center, come back to your heart center, come back to your intuition, come back to your deeper inner knowing, and use that as your guide. Because your higher consciousness, your soul, your intuition, your heart are never going to lead you down a path that harms self or others. It's just never going to do that because it's such a higher vibration that high octave cannot live in the same space as a lower octave, right? So there's going to be tension there. There's going to be that pressure, right? So especially for the next 40 days and 40 nights, pay attention to your heart center. Pay attention to your intuition. Come back to yourself. What is your soul asking you to do? What is your higher consciousness asking you to do in this situation? Not your ego, right? Because the ego would be quick to say, blame that person, point the finger, build that wall, let's stay quote unquote safe. The soul is going to say, how can we move in a healthy way towards honesty, connectivity, love, and truth, right? And the 9 is absolutely at that vibration and is going to say, yeah, let's do this. So this is absolutely a period of evaluating or reevaluating how we can step into that higher octave of the 9 and honor self while honoring others as well, because ultimately, we are all energetically one, right? The higher self. So, okay, the last thing I want to look at is, because again, I said this is going for 40 days. And so I do think that this is significant because it is the vibration, of course, of the 44, so 404. And the reason why I think that is significant, even though it does this every time Venus goes retrograde, is for 40 days and 40 nights. But I just thought it was kind of significant just to bring it in as a quick talking point because, of course, the 4 is all about foundations. It's all about building a very solid foundation of integrity, right? And also the 4 is very much heart-led or meant to be. It's a very deeply sensitive, highly intuitive energy. And it's very much, the 4th chakra is the heart chakra. So it is led by the heart. So whatever foundation you are building, or whichever foundation is crumbling and you're asked to rebuild over the next 40 days, needs to be done with integrity, needs to be done very methodically, step by step, not skipping steps to sort of rush forward. This 4 energy is going to ask us to be very honest, to get very honest in our approach, in how it is that we are building or rebuilding these bridges, or building this foundation. 4 energy is a very honest energy. So it's going to make us sort of look at ourselves in the mirror and ask ourselves, where have we not been completely honest with ourselves? And where can we maybe do better? And where can we do better when it comes to our communication with others in sharing that honesty? The other things with the 40 is that this is going to ask us to bring in new techniques. So potentially, of course, anywhere that the pressure is put on during this retrograde is going to be areas that we could do better, right? So the old techniques are not working. So what can we do different? This is a great period for planning, not necessarily for starting something new, but during that evaluation process, we can start to plan in how it is that we can do better in whatever area this shows up. This energy of the 40 is that of the peacemaker, right? And someone who is often very emotionally mature. So it's going to ask us to get in touch with those emotions and really harness that energy and decide how it is that we want to channel that charged energy. Because if we can do it in a vibration of love and compassion for ourselves and others, then that foundation is really going to be indestructible. And that's what the 44 is asking us to do during this period. It also can bring about confidence. And again, will ask us to be very methodical in our approach and being very open to hearing not only, to hearing others' perspectives as well as we work to build that foundation. So with all that said, just remember that you do not have control over other people or what they do or how they react or any of those things, but you absolutely have control over your own effort, your own contributions, your own actions. So the question you can ask yourself during this retrograde is, am I happy with my contributions, with my efforts? Or do I want to modify them in a way that feels like I'm being more honest with myself and more honest with others, moving more towards connectivity as opposed to separation? And what does that look like? And what do I need to do to build that solid foundation? So big energies with this retrograde. And I'm right there with you. So I hope you found this helpful and find it useful on your journey forward over the next 40 days. And I will see you all again soon. Take care. Bye for now.